I've asked student trustee Bella Tidei to report on the CLC student activities, conferences, and issues. So Bella.
Thank you. First I'll give my February board report and then I'll comment on how I enjoyed the summit in Washington, D.C. So our Student Government Association attended the ASGA conference in New Orleans to network with other students from across the country and to enhance their leadership skills. And that went very, very well. Our senators were very diplomatic and were received welcome and warmly greeted. As a reminder, student government will be hosting a forum for the trustee elections on March 4th at 12 till 1:30 in room C005. There will be light refreshments and the opportunity to ask the candidates questions. The campus events included Black History Month's Poetry in Motion. Phenom hosted this spoken word poetry event, which featured college poets 3BM, Deanna Dean, and I apologize if I butcher this name, Authentic, with AW. This inspiring performance included a tribute to poet Maya Angelou and an open mic session. Tickets were free to CLC students. Black History Month's Black Jeopardy was hosted by the Black Student Union in the Multicultural Center, and it was a fun Jeopardy-style trivia game, and contestants could win a $500 Visa gift card. And I was not aware of this, or I would have been there. And then Black Inventors exhibit displayed beautiful artifacts and other historic contributions by African American artists and creators. And last year, over 200 CLC staff and students signed the Bone Marrow Donor Registry, and lives were saved as a result. Be the March registry returned to CLC this month at all 3 campuses. And the Psychology Club will be hosting a film showing of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and faculty-led discussion will follow from 7 to 10 p.m. tomorrow.
Have you seen that?
I have.
Oh, that is.
And we'll have Professor Jonder speaking after that movie. And in regards to Washington, I thought it was an amazing experience for me as a student who's never actually had the chance to talk one-on-one with legislative. It was a little intimidating at first, but after a while I got the hang of it, and I was really appreciative of the fact that I got to share my story of how the Pell Grant has affected me directly as a student and how it basically affects all students, if you really think about it, because it's not just the students receiving it, it's the students who are being given the chance. And because of that, they're meeting more students and diversity is being spread. It's an amazing experience to really be able to share that story. And I also, while they opened up the floor, while the speakers were speaking to ask questions, I gave a statement regarding that there should be more student representation at all of the conferences. And basically, the reason why I said that was because if we're advocating for funds for students, shouldn't we be showing them the proof that these funds are not going to waste? And then I have responses from the enrollment questions I was asked from the last meeting. Now, these are minutes taken directly from the experience team meetings. And they had, if class is canceled, I do have a handout if everybody wants to take one, with all the information that I was able to collect, and was very surprised with the majority of what I was hearing, but also I've heard a majority of it and felt personally a majority of it. So occasionally, if class is canceled, are students properly notified? That was one of the questions that was asked. And occasionally a catalog lists a class as, for example, TR Tuesday and Thursday, but ends up being only a Tuesday class, or the reverse has happened where the catalog says T, Tuesday only, but ends up being both Tuesday and Thursday. So students end up being messed with school and their work schedules, and how can this be avoided is the question that was asked. And then other problems being looked at were students were locked out from registering until the previous semester is fully paid. Now, because the last payment is due in December, students can't take advantage of priority registration. That was one of the problems that a lot of students were voicing opinions on. And then late arrival of scholarship money. So too often when scholarship money finally arrives, students end up with a refund check instead of being able to pay directly for their classes and then being able to sign up for the priority registration. And then the drop policy has impacted registration and low enrollment horribly. And it's still confusing to a lot of students. And it needs to be communicated to students in a more effective way, is what the students were saying. Now, the discussion on financial aid, we had both positive and negative experiences. So the payment plan seems easy enough to sign up for, and options are listed correctly and clearly. And then the financial aid office is easy to talk to, and they can provide good information to students. And the negative experiences were, they can be frustrating when they don't understand how FAFSA and the application process, how it works, and because it's long, they request that possibly more workshops. And then the book voucher system, it's not always understood by students, so they'll walk into the bookstore and they'll have no money to pay for the books, but they don't understand that the voucher is given to them at the cash register. And I've been through this myself, so that was a little confusing, but I did figure it out. And then the many holds on accounts, students have told me are confusing and they need explaining. And can they follow up with a phone call going out to students when holds are placed on their accounts? And talking to a real person is always calming. So, new student orientation gets a lot of financial questions, and the ambassadors are not always well versed with being able to answer these questions, so can financial aid get more involved with new student orientation in order to really get this information across? And they also brought up, is there a medical leave of absence that is acknowledged? If a student is out on medical, it causes problems and it looks like the student has failed all classes, so is there any way that that can be avoided?
Yeah, that's actually a policy.
Yeah, there's a policy.
Excellent. And then these SAP appeals are not always clear, whether or not you have to attend the workshop. And then the problems with the enrollment process are as follows, expressed by students. So no printed catalog of course offerings, no clear information about deferred payments. The process is a bit clearer this semester, but not as well publicized. And then the cancellation of classes needed for major and specific programs too early in the registration process. A later cancellation would allow more students to be accommodated in classes that they needed and or wanted. And I had a faculty member actually approach me about and gave an example of her Wednesday night American Decades class, and it was the last multicultural diversity class still open. So many of her students were, basically her class was the only international class that was still open by the time they were getting to the end of enrollment process. And she expressed that we need to do a better job accommodating our students. And on another matter, students have complained about how bland and unattractive our publicity is on all media, and how little it does to attract attention, so perhaps some better designers. And that concludes the information that I was able to
Well, that about wraps it up, I suppose.
Bella did a great job in Washington, and obviously, now that everybody has a list over here, you're going to come back next month with some answers to some of these, or at least some suggestions,
Oh,
correct?
we'll look at it all.
Yeah.
Sure. So some of these we can actually, some
Well,
good ideas.
yeah, I think some of these we can definitely cover at the next meeting.
Well, I just can't, I mean, there's a lot of serious things here. And, you know, I think this is going to be over a time period. So I'd like to see something built in here, not just coming back next month, but this should be something ongoing here if you think this is a concern. It's just
Well,
not-
yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't mean just next
No, I
month,
didn't
but
think
I meant
you
we'd
meant,
start with next
I
month.
didn't take it that way, but I just want to make sure we have a process in place.
Well, one thing I would like to point out to the board is that the SET team is a student experience team, and it's something new that we created this year. And it's really designed to gather
get these kinds
this
of
kind of
things.
information. And the charge that I gave Karen and her staff that were working to create the SET team is what do students see, feel, hear from the moment they begin to come into the institution? Because you know, it's about that experience. And I use a stupid example. I say I want it to be Disney. You know, when they approach an office, I want it to be Disney. That people are there to help them, that are happy. But the SET team is really designed to come up with these kinds of things so that we know,